Hello, fellow audio nerds. I'm Steph, and this is Major Hi-Fi. The Abyss Diana Phi is one of the most highly regarded headphones in the audiophile market right now, so when I got a chance to listen to them this week, I was super excited to see how they sounded. And with a super high price point of $4,000, I was curious, how do they sound, and are they worth the money? Let's go back in time, I'll share with you my first impressions, and then I will meet you right back here for my overall thoughts. Alright, here we go. Oh, hey, Steph here. Before getting started into the review, I just want to say a quick thing. If you like this review and you find it really helpful, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and to subscribe to the channel. We definitely want to try and grow a little bit, so definitely want to hear your feedback as well. So let us know what you think in the comments down below. Alright, thanks. I'll see you in the review. Hey everybody, welcome to my place. So today I have with me the Abyss Diana Phi, and I'm super excited to give them a listen. So let's see what's inside the box here. Alright, so as you'll see here, it really is quite a simple package. First things first, there's this kind of canvas zipping carrying case with this leather kind of details. It's really nice, feels super well made and durable. Next, we've got this cable here. So this one actually terminates to a 3.5 millimeter connector, but you can order them with kind of whatever custom like connectors that you want. You want something balanced, unbalanced, something that, with a 4-pin XLR, etc. You can kind of order the cable the way that you want it. This one has 3.5 millimeter connector, and so that cable then comes with the adapter to 6.35 millimeter adapter. And then, of course, finally, we have the headphones themselves. Now, these headphones are expensive. They go for a lot of money, like $4,000. They're really beautiful. They have kind of this, like, maturity to them, and yet the thing that I find really interesting is that just in general, the look of the ear cup, for example, there's this like level of maturity with like the gray kind of color and everything, but then this part of it feels very like intricate then and kind of gives it that more like expensive look. And that's the thing with these headphones. They feel very, very well made. Now this headband is really kind of thin, but it's very flexible, and down here, there's sort of this like aluminum frame with this carbon fiber kind of extender you'll see right there. And the top of this is leather, and then the underside of it is actually Alcantara. It's perforated Alcantara, so it's, kind of a really like kind of small headband design, but one that feels really soft to the touch, feels really nice, and feels expensive, feels good. Then moving downward a little bit, the ear cups again, you'll see it's kind of this like rounded square shape. And this is like a Fibonacci hole design, and they say that this like is the reason they chose this is because it's sort of like the natural way that things kind of want to move. So that's why they chose that design there. But it is sort of a square ear cup, and inside are the planar magnetics. So you can actually see right through the ear cup there to the drivers inside. It is protected by this kind of screen-like material that's sort of covering it up there. Then the ear pads, these are coated in leather. It's sort of this like bouncy foam you'll see, and it's actually a really interesting shape because it's round, even though the ear cups are more square shape. So they're kind of like an interesting contrast there. But it's also not really symmetrical. You'll see that it kind of slopes up from the inside, coming to kind of a soft point around the edges. And then on the outside of these ear cups, it's actually perforated leather. So yeah, a lot of like kind of intricate details to this headphone design that's really interesting. And another sort of interesting thing is that there's not really a yoke, but rather this is all one kind of piece. You'll see there's not really a hinge. These ear cups don't turn in or anything. Like they only really do because the headphone does. But the thing that Abyss says about this is that it kind of contours to the head using like kind of these magnets. So it's interesting. I don't know. I'm actually finding that like I kind of have a relatively small head. These are actually in its smallest size a little bit. Like I wish they could be a little bit smaller so they could sit a little bit higher on my head, but But anyway, so if you have a very small head, maybe that's worth considering. But I think for most people, these are going to be this is going to fit really well, and it'll fit a wide variety of heads. I am finding there's a little bit of weight to these ear cups, but it's helpful because you'll see the headband kind of spans the whole part of the head here, so it kind of takes some of the weight out of those cups, but just in the hands, they feel very durable, they feel very strong, and like they have like this high qualityness to them. So as for the cable, this cable is made by JPS Labs, and they also make an upgrade cable, but there isn't a whole lot of information about this particular stock cable online for whatever reason, but you will see it's a manageable length. You can actually order the cables in different lengths too if you prefer something longer, but it's definitely got this heftiness to it. This is not a thin cable, it's got this thick kind of jacket on it, but that kind of contrasts in a really interesting way from the left and right sides, because these on the other hand are both very kind of like thin wires there. There is sort of this proprietary connector shape that kind of fits right in. It's kind of a wedge shape that fits right into the ear cups. You'll see there's a little space for the cables here. But in a general sense, these connectors all feel very well made, very strong. I don't think you're going to have any problems with durability with this. And it is kind of wraps up easily and is easy to kind of like take care of and manage. Now, before getting into the sound, just quickly about the drivers in these headphones. So the special thing about these drivers is that they are the Phi drivers. Now, these became popular with an earlier, the flagship Abyss headphone, the AB1266 Phi, and so these use the same drivers. And the things that these are supposed to do well, according to Abyss, they can really produce fine detail, they have a really quick low-end response, and just kind of have a sense of nuance to everything. It's a low-mass diaphragm, so I think the idea is that it can move really quickly. So I am very excited to give these a listen. And yeah, I'll get ready over here. I'm just going to be driving these right now with my UAD Apollo Twin. We'll see how the driving is, but I will test these with a bunch of different kind of amplification setups and let you know kind of how it performs with different amounts of power. Alright, I was just listening to the song Cleva by Erykah Badu, and the low frequencies are really nice and extended, and yet the kick drum kind of had this like deep kind of lowness to it. Same thing with the bass guitar, and yet still maintained clarity. It didn't feel like a vague low end. It felt still very tight. Yes, the low end kind of quickness that Abyss sort of described with these Phi drivers came through in a really impactful way, and the kick drum and the bass guitar in this song really maintained a great sense of separation, and because of how then thick they were both able to be and yet maintain that separation and kind of movement, made them super groovy sounding. Like the low end on these is just absolutely really, really fun. Alright, I was just listening to Born of a Broken Man by Rage Against the Machine. The guitars sounded absolutely huge with these. Like, they just had this really amazing sense of power to them. Lots of thickness, lots of harmonic complexity, and yet there was still sort of like, I don't know, a sense of warmth to them at the same time. Like, they were also really aesthetically pleasing. So this is a very interesting mid-range, one that has this warmth and this clarity that was really, really cool. Then, as for the vocal in the song, it sounded accurately placed in the mix level wise, but the thing that was kind of interesting about it is that it seemed to emphasize the chest and the throat of the voice as opposed to the face of the voice. So, kind of looking forward to examining that high mid response a little bit as time goes on. All right, yeah, the high frequencies here are really aesthetically pleasing sounding. I was just listening to the song Miles Runs the Voodoo Down by Miles Davis. And with the high frequencies here, the trumpets, the electric guitars, the keys had presence to them for sure. Also, kind of the harmonic complexity of the cymbals, of the percussion, the shaker, etc., sounded like there's sort of this sense of realism to them a little bit. And yet the very highest frequencies of those instruments sat a little bit quieter in the mix than usual. All of the harmonic complexity was there, and even there was a sense of extension to the headphones, but yeah, it just kind of sat a little bit quieter in the mix than I was, I guess, expecting. But it's a really kind of smooth, high frequency response, and it kind of contributes to the overall vibe that's in the mid range, right? That kind of warmth and yet detailed. It's a similar vibe and feel to the high frequencies, kind of this smoothness and this warmth, and yet it's also very detailed and very specific. Wow, the soundstage on these are absolutely like, yeah, really, really fun. I was just listening to the song Fever by Ray Charles featuring Natalie Cole, and there's a lot of specificity to the soundstage in general. There's a lot of separation between all the instruments in the sense of depth. Like the vocal really contrasts super strongly from the further off keys, the drums, even the bass, which usually I don't hear as much of a soundstage represented in like low frequencies and low mids as much. It's more of like a mid and high frequency thing. But I could really feel like the bass was further off in space, and that was a very cool kind of thing. And likewise, I felt like the sense of height with these, there's kind of this low end extension and this high frequency extension, and it just really kind of creates this really tall image of the sound that feels very specific and accurate. Especially with the frequency response that it has. So basically, there's just a lot of separation and differentiation in that height, and it really contributes to being able to pinpoint each individual instrument as it goes by, like with the strings in the song and the Rhodes and the guitars. Like there's a lot of instruments sitting in a similar frequency range, and yet they all have that separation because the high frequencies, the vocal kind of and the cymbals kind of sits up here, and that contrasts really strongly from the bass guitar down here, and sort of the guitars and Rhodes in the middle. It's interesting, and it sounds really, really fun. It's like definitely adds to the listening experience, especially in that song, because the arrangement starts off really sparse and gets thicker as the song goes on. But anyway, yeah, I'm very much looking forward to spending some more quality time with these. I want to try them with different kind of amplification setups. And anyway, I will meet you back at the Major Hi-Fi office with my overall thoughts. All right, here we go. Before getting into the sound characteristics of the Diana Phi, I want to quickly make a note about the power situation in my experience with driving these with different amounts of power. Now, the interesting thing was I actually got a fair amount of volume out of these headphones with kind of less powerful amplification. However, when I used heavier amplification, I had a much better experience, and the sound of the headphones really came to life in a different sort of way. I got more separation. There just seemed to be more kind of solidity in the low end and the low mids when I had proper amplification. My favorite amplifier I used with these was the IFI Pro ICANN at the highest gain setting, and then adjusting the volume from there. So you can drive these with a less powerful amplification, but I definitely recommend getting something with a little bit more power so that you can get the most out of these headphones. But anyway, onto the sound. Overall, the low frequencies of the Abyss Diana Phi have extension, quickness, and clarity, and there did seem to be a little bit of a boost in the sub-region around 30 to 40 hertz to my ear, and this gave this really nice extra energy to kick drums and subsynths and anything else with information down there. However, that boost combined with the quickness of the headphones really gave these headphones a very emotionally impactful low end that really gives a lot of groove to the song and just brings out that energy in a beautiful way, actually. It's really able to maintain that sense of like deep depth while also having a lot of clarity and really actually nice separation around the low frequencies, which creates, it lets the low frequencies do their thing and have a lot of movement, while also having a sense of foundational support from the low mids, which sound very clear. The middle frequencies of the Abyss Diana Phi are super full and harmonically complex and really warm and beautiful sounding. The middle part of the mid-range really seems harmonically complex. Electric guitars, strings, horns, pianos, other kinds of keys sound kind of realistic, like they have this sense of realism to them, and then at the same time they also sound really warm. So it's this very interesting combination of having warmth but also feeling very, very detailed. There's a little bit of a boost in the high mids around, right at the base of the high mids, around what sounded like 1K, and again at around 3K, and this really helped give it extra presence and articulation. But cuts in between those boosts actually kind of level out the high mids so that vocals and strings, other instruments that have high mid information still sound similar and like appropriate in the mix level wise, while still having kind of that added articulation. It's really interesting. Additionally, there was a little bit of a boost around 400 hertz to my ear, and this really brings forward kind of the meatiness of electric guitars, kind of that thing that feels very thick, comes forward in the mix. It didn't feel cloudy at all. It really just kind of made electric guitars and strings, even basses at in some mixes, kind of step forward and really take up more space than they would otherwise. And it didn't really distract from other areas of the frequency response, but rather just gave these a really nice sense of bigness. And it's one reason why I absolutely loved these headphones for rock music. Anything that needs like a really big electric guitar. Same thing with pop music with very thick synths and stuff like that. They sounded absolutely just like big and nice and contributed to the overall attitude of the mix. Overall, the high frequencies of the Abyss Diana Phi have a great sense of harmonic complexity, even a sense of realism, but they also feel very smooth and easy and a little bit moderate in the mix level-wise. They were a little bit quieter than I was expecting them to be, at least in comparison to the big-sounding mid-range and that low end. There's a little bit of a boost in the lower treble, which really kind of adds a little bit of extra articulation to the snaps of snare drums, to vocals, anything with information there. But as for the relationship to cymbals, they sounded absolutely gorgeous and really harmonically complex. Their characters come through in a very textured way with a little bit of a boost around 8 kilohertz. However, that boost is sort of balanced by a cut then right after it around what sounded like 9K or something. And that really kind of made the detail of those cymbals come through in a beautiful way without bumping them in the mix level-wise. I also heard a little bit of a bump right around somewhere between 10 and 12 kilohertz. This added a really nice kind of feeling of sizzle and air and really kind of brought those cymbals to life a little bit. But they also sat a little bit quieter in the mix than you might expect compared to the other things, the other areas of the frequency response, and thus was a very interesting high-frequency response. It had that nice detail that you want out of cymbals without boosting its actual level in the mix, thus giving it this really kind of smooth feeling that just had a lot of nuance to it. Overall, the soundstage of the Abyss Diana Phi was super fun, dynamic, and really exciting sounding. It really had a sort of dramatic feeling of depth and width, and this brought mixes to life in a way that is just super fun with headphones that have that kind of speaker-like quality on your head. Now there was a nice kind of mixture with a little bit of intimacy there because of the boost in the lower treble that kind of brought things closer to you so you don't really miss out on intimacy, but the feeling of extension in those other dimensions just felt really, really great. Additionally, because of that low frequency extension and high frequency extension, even though it's a little bit quieter, it really kind of helped to stretch out the mix in the vertical domain, create a lot of separation, and just add to the emotional impact of songs that utilize Soundstage for kind of bringing that emotion across. Overall, the Abyss Diana Phi has a really nice, thick, a harmonically complex sound that works well for a wide variety of genres because of the realism it can give across, while also maintaining a sense of warmth and just aesthetic detail. If you like your headphones to have character but also want realism out of them, those two things usually don't work together, but with these headphones they really do, and it's such an interesting and unique and very well done sound signature. I particularly liked the headphones with jazz, with rock, and with pop music because that added thickness combined with that really, really expansive soundstage just made them really fun to listen to. Thank you so much for watching. For another take on the Abyss Diana Phi, check out the link in the description box to my colleague's review of the same headphones. If you liked this review, please give it a thumbs up. And for more like this, be sure to subscribe. Alright everybody, I will see you next time. Bye.